When magic and machines failed, they made a beast to serve as the last component. I hope you all had a wonderful week. I'm really proud of last week's video and hope I can give you one just as good, if not better, this week. And I have one heck of a creature to do it with. Just look at the cards we have to start with. How are we going to blend them together? Well, originally, I thought it would be this gloopy thing that would have a circular head / display built into it. Then it would be a mobile scrying mirror with the bonus ability to use the things it sees to project expressions or say short phrases, like D&D 5th Edition's Kenku, but a little bit more. That didn't work out very well visually though, so I rotated over to another idea. Something like a beholder, but for portals. This latched onto my brain and evolved as I drew it, even blending into that phrase I read out at the beginning of the video. Now, how do we explain that phrase? Well, how about we try a taste of lore? On the breathing continent, there were many city-states that sent their best pupils to the academy, a school built over a tumor of gray matter. Those scholars there were known worldwide as leaders of invention, magic, and philosophy. Maybe if they had any training in war, they could have avoided being captured by one of the students they rejected. Kublai Khazar was only interested in conquering the breathing continent, first by war, then by trade. The exact methods didn't matter, but the plan was set. She needed an efficient transportation system, and the roads built on the breathing continent would just heal and scar over. The academy would make a better solution. Of course, some academics rebelled and were promptly exiled, forevermore removed from the center of learning that they loved. This, more than death, was a strong motivator to the academics who remained. They went to work already knowing the basics of teleportation and portal making. Kublai was presented with a modified ritual that allowed a single mage to rip open a tear wide enough to allow for 20 soldiers to pass through shoulder by shoulder. This was a huge innovation, but it was not enough for Kublai. But a mage must keep that portal open, and a single arrow from my enemies could end this whole battle. The mages went back to work. They revised designs, researched other methods, and even reached out to the ironsmiths at their blood forges. The second attempt was a machine that could open a portal for 3 days and 3 nights without refueling. But this draws power from the ground and cannot be moved or closed before the 3 days and nights have ended. Try again. This infuriated many of the mages, but others were fired up by that challenge. This was a level of activity and usefulness that they have never experienced before at the academy. This blend of fury and determination led to a new creation, a new method, a new avenue for rebellion. The mages reached out to the one area of investigation both unique to the breathing continent and shunned by traditional academic institutions. The meat molders. Mages of blood, flesh, and bone. They created the last component for the new transportation system. Kublai was delighted as much as she was horrified. The creature was a gigantic floating portal that could open up anywhere there was a machine or gateway mage ready to receive it. With more of the creatures, the Kublai could even make a network between them. What's more is that it fed on the dead left over from the battles fought, or the garbage left over from trades made. Why, I would be delighted to try this out. This is the most wonderful thing you all have ever made for me. The mages offered this demonstration of the portal for Kublai to use personally. When Kublai and the Board of Deans stood at the top of a wooden tower, right in the middle of the portal, one of the deans called out a command. The portal opened to a huge maw, and the deans pushed Kublai in. The portal opened to the true mouth of the beast, hidden deep in the Academy's basement, deep within the tumor. But then, when the beast first tasted its living body of Kublai, it hungered. The tumor took over. The monster swung about, using its portal to eat all that it could. Not many knew what truly happened that day, but rumors say that the beast is still there, still kept under the Academy, ready to be unleashed upon the next would-be conqueror the moment they step on Academy grounds. But of course, the beast must still be fed in the meantime, and sacrifices will be given. Okay, that got wild. Still, it gives such a cool vibe and starts off some awesome thoughts on how to build a quest line surrounding the Academy, its mysteries, and even just the breathing continent as a concept. Now that we have the story, let's pull out that character card and give this creature a name. Portal Beast would serve, but seems a little too mundane for an academic institution to name it. How about the Excretion Abomination? That seems pretty cool, like ingress versus exgress. Yeah, it gives that clunky academicness and the horror that this creature embodies. Next up, the abilities. We obviously have to talk about that horror, that portal and hidden mouth inside, and the fact that it's built within a tumor of the breathing continent. I like this idea of transportation and how these abilities can give it that theme of, yes, this is a beast that was made to move things from one place to another. So let's give it that to tie within the feeding idea. So transmission maw sounds like a pretty cool idea. It feeds into how it can teleport from one place to another, but also how it feeds. Maybe there's a quest where you need to use this thing to teleport somewhere to complete that. And the adventurers have to really make sure that they convince the Excretion Abomination to not just eat them and instead bring them to where they want to go. Next, let's handle the size and the flight. Just to give context, I think the Excretion Abomination is about 100 feet tall. Not too tall by kaiju standards, but it's similar to like King Kong from the 2015 film, if you've seen it. So yeah, gigantic. And how about we call this ability Floating Leviathan? That's just terrifying. Just imagine if this thing was tamed and used as a tool for war, or escaped, or just wandered about, and you could see it from miles away, just floating in your direction. Immediately, you need to evacuate upon sight. It's sort of like a tornado, but much more. I don't want to say malicious, but like just threatening. You can see the terror that's coming, and there is very little build up to it. It's just that it's here and it's gonna start eating people. So yeah, now for those tentacles right at the bottom of it, I think that it would use them to grab people to pop into its portal mouth. This could be pretty simple. I mean, clutching tentacles would work. The idea is that it would float over, and if it can get you within its grasp, it'll just throw you straight into the portal mouth and you're pretty much done for. It wouldn't even be difficult for it to take down armies upon armies. I'd be terrified to fight this with my characters. I also wanted to add like a bonus ability. I couldn't really fit this in with any of the other ideas, but I really like the idea that this creature can shoot lasers out of its eyes to, go back to that beholder kind of inspiration. So let's just give it this: optical ray emissions. And yeah, so moving on from the abilities, let's make those stats. This is so huge that I think we can say that it's not within the bounds that normal stats would work for. So I'll come up with some kaiju level system. How about power, energy, endurance, speed, understanding, and expression? These will go from 1 to 5 with no negatives, as that wouldn't really fit a kaiju scale idea. For context, each point in one of these stats would be equivalent to a +5 modifier in 5e, or, the sort of power equivalent to what you would see in your own table system. With that groundwork laid, let's get started. Power. This will be a 1, since the Excretion Abomination isn't really a hand-to-hand kind of kaiju. It can still destroy a building if it swings around hard enough, but that's not its focus. Its primary offensive ability would be those eye rays, or the fact that it just has a giant portal in the middle of its body. Next up, energy. To me, this is how long a creature can keep doing its thing. And the portal is meant to keep open for days or weeks at a time, not just a few minutes or hours like how most kaiju battles last. Also, those laser eyes, I would think that they wouldn't take too much for this thing to do. So, next up, endurance. Let's go for a 2 on this. It's definitely reinforced, but well, this donut would probably get scrunched after a couple of suplexes. I would not want to put it up against King Kong if King Kong were anywhere like close to it. Speed. I like the idea that the Excretion Abomination is way faster than you expect, like a crab on a beach. 4 points. Understanding. This is more of like a social stat, or being able to intuit things from the environment. And the Excretion Abomination really doesn't have much worldly experience to start understanding others, especially not in combat situations where it's fighting another thing of its same size. Finally, expression. Similar thing as understanding. You're not really going to win the hearts and minds of people without much of a face, or even really sort of a well-constructed personality. I mean, this thing hasn't been properly fed ever. So when you are consumed by a starvation lasting years upon decades upon millennia, that kind of takes over. All right, let's move on to the core phrases. We'll start out with, of course, I hunger. This thing is so huge, and of course, they're not feeding it properly at the academy, no matter how many ancient cults there are. Like, if this thing were to actually eat enough, I suppose, mass to feed itself properly, it would probably take up like entire farms to just maintain it, or it could clear out a whole city in a day to finally satiate its hunger. I was forced to be a traitor. I really like the idea that the Excretion Abomination knows what was going on with its creation and now has to live with the fact that it was the tool to kill the Kublai. Finally, the world is unknown to me. Once it's properly fed, there could be a cool opportunity to interact with this sort of baby-like creature that's been locked up for its entire existence. And to add on to the fact that it's a kaiju level creature and also has its mouth built into a brain tumor, like, that's just wild. And now that we're done with the core phrases, that's that. I hope you enjoyed this week's monster. It feels like we made such an interesting horror that can be used to punctuate a great intrigue story, or when it breaks out can be a terrifying wandering threat that needs an absurd amount of power to be taken down. And I mean, what would happen if someone were even able to tame this? That would be horrifying. That would take over countries. That would be a huge peaking climax to what could be a great campaign. So also, if you've made it this far, seems like you enjoy what I do. So if you wouldn't mind, would you toss me a like and subscribe to see me again next week? So with all that, let's bring this video to a close. For those of you with dark skies, good night. And if you have bright days, good morning. Whatever part of the world you're from, I hope you have a lovely morning, afternoon, evening, and night. Goodbye.